The LA Kings get ready for their season opener in Buffalo. We've got a scouting report and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love for you to leave us a positive comment on Apple Podcasts if you're a fan of the show. And we are on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you're enjoying this content. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, 20 plus years at the Fox Sports Radio Network. Also co-host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the past 18 years, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. The countdown to the NHL season continues for the LA Kings. The season opener, October 10th in Buffalo against the Sabres, is 1 day away. The Kings season opener, or I should say home opener, October 24th against the San Jose Sharks, 15 days away. But obviously, very excited that we are just 1 day away from the Kings opening up a new season. But before we get into that and the Kings taking on the Buffalo Sabres, there is a little bit of news to pass along about the Kings. Nothing of a surprise. As a matter of fact, both of these moves were expected. The LA Kings have recalled forward Andre Lee from Ontario after they loaned him to the Reign earlier this week. I am 99.9% positive that this move was made on paper alone, that Lee actually didn't leave the team and come to Southern California and then fly back to Buffalo. I'm sure he was with the team the entire time, but procedurally, the Kings made this move. There are certain salary cap implications for why teams do this type of thing. I've said it before. I don't completely understand it other than to say that's why they did it. So as far as Andre Lee, as was previously reported, as we have expected, he is in fact going to be on the Kings opening night roster. As for the decision if he will be in the lineup or not against the Buffalo Sabres, that remains to be seen. The other bit of news also expected, the LA Kings placed veteran defenseman Drew Doughty on LTIR, long-term injured reserve. A player on LTIR must sit out at least 10 regular season games and 24 days for the club to get any kind of salary cap relief. Obviously, that's not an issue with Doughty because he's going to be out for months. The move does, in fact, get the Kings under the salary cap, which they were slightly over. I believe it was something like less than $250,000. Now, according to puckpedia.com, LA is $10.23 million under the salary cap. Now, when Drew Doughty comes back, we'll see what kind of roster moves the Kings will have to make to accommodate him, but that's for well down the line. Right now, the Kings roster is very much set for the start of the 2024-25 season. So with that out of the way, we are on the verge of seeing the new look LA Kings in action as they drop the puck on the 2024-25 season Thursday night in Buffalo. We're going to get more into the Sabres and tell you all about them coming up in just a bit. They've already played a couple of games already. But as for the Kings, here is the lineup that we're 99% sure we're going to see on opening night. Now, 6 of the Kings' 12 forwards for this season are either new or playing in a different place. That would include the top line, centered by Anze Kopitar, with Adrian Kempe and Alex Laferriere moving up to the top line, at least to start this season, taking over for Quentin Byfield. The second line has Philip Deneau, centering Tanner Jeannot and Trevor Moore. Tanner Jeannot, obviously the new addition to that line, playing on the wing, having come in from the Tampa Bay Lightning in the offseason. The third line has Quentin Byfield, centering Kevin Fiala and Warren Foegele. Obviously, Byfield moving from the wing on the top line to the center position on the third line, and Warren Foegele coming in from the Edmonton Oilers. The fourth line is pretty much completely new, and we're still not 100% sure who exactly is going to be on that fourth line, but we believe that Alex Turcotte will be centering the fourth line. Of course, he got a decent look with the Kings last season. Akil Thomas, who got a small look with LA, I believe will be on one of the wings, and I think the veteran Trevor Lewis will be on the other. Again, that's not set in stone. But I do think that we're pretty much set in stone as far as what we're going to see from the top three lines, and there could be a slight tweak on the fourth line. As for the defense, 4 of the Kings' 6 defensemen are either playing new positions or are new to the team. The top pairing is Mikey Anderson and Jordan Spence. Spence being elevated from the third pairing to the top pairing with the injury to Drew Doughty. The second pairing will have Vladislav Gavrikov and Kyle Burrows. Burrows coming in the offseason from the San Jose Sharks. And an entirely new third pairing with Joel Edmondson joining the team. And, of course, Brandt Clark, the young, exciting prospect, finally getting his first time to he has some NHL experience, but starting the season and expected to be there all season long on that third pairing. Of course, we also have a new goaltender in Darcy Kemper, and he's backed up by veteran David Riddick. Now, the fourth line, again, the only one I'm not totally sure about. Could Andre Lee start on the fourth line on opening night? Possibly. Could it be Lee and Lewis and Turcotte? Yes. Could it be Lee and Thomas and Turcotte? Possibly. But if I had to bet my money, I would go again with Turcotte centering Akil Thomas and Trevor Lewis. As for the Kings power play units, Andre Kopitar and Adrian Kempe expected to be out there along with Kevin Fiala, Alex Laferriere, and Brandt Clark should make up the Kings' number 1 power play unit. The second power play unit for LA will be Quentin Byfield, Philip Deneau, Trevor Moore, Alex Turcotte, I believe, and Jordan Spence. Turcotte's the one player of that group that could be not in there, although I'm betting my money he's going to be out there. We did see Akil Thomas for a game, but I think that was the game where Turcotte didn't play. I think that's the reason that was the case. Not totally sure about that if memory serves from the preseason, but I think that second unit again will be Byfield, Deneau, Moore, Turcotte, and Spence. As far as the penalty kill for the Kings, the top penalty kill unit will be Kopitar and Kempe, along with Mikey Anderson and Kyle Burrows. Perhaps at some point down the road this season, maybe somebody else could take over and assume that spot for Andre Kopitar, try and cut back in his minutes a little bit. But for the start of the season, I think it's going to be Andre Kopitar out there on the number 1 penalty kill. The second penalty kill unit, I think we'll have Philip Deneau and Trevor Moore at the forwards with Vladislav Gavrikov and Joel Edmondson. Obviously, this could be tweaked if one of those 8 players is in the penalty box. Somebody else obviously would have to take over, but I believe those will be the special team units for the LA Kings. As far as the keys to the Kings to get a win in Buffalo, my number 1 key for the Kings is start fast and score the first goal. Last season, the Buffalo Sabres were a minus 30 goal differential in the first period. This season, they already have played 2 games. They have not scored a goal in the first period. They've allowed 2. So this team clearly doesn't start strong typically. Don't let this team in their season opener at home get any kind of momentum. Let them start to question themselves again. Let them try to dig themselves out of a hole by being the first team to score in this one. Plus, the Kings are usually better when they have the lead as a more defensive-minded team. So an early goal also could take the season opening crowd out of the game as well. And frankly, it's a fan base that is understandably kind of waiting for something to be disappointed about. So don't give the Sabres or their fans anything to be excited about early. Start fast and score the first goal. The second key for me for the LA Kings is win the special teams battle, especially do not allow a power play goal. Buffalo is 0 for 5 on the power play so far this season. They were 29th out of 32 teams in the NHL with a man advantage last season. The Kings penalty kill was a strength last year and looks to be again. Do not let a Sabres team that could be offensively challenged get a big boost by scoring a power play goal in this game. And my third key for the Kings, make Buffalo uncomfortable, be physical. GM Rob Blake and head coach Jim Miller talked about this in the offseason, being uncomfortable. Now that means a lot of different things, but the Kings, they were made to be themselves uncomfortable with a very physical and aggressive training camp. They showed a more blue-collar physical style in the preseason. They added players in the offseason that fit that role. Time to translate that into a real game. It starts with a strong forecheck. It also means going to the net, both with shots and bodies. Sabres have 2 very young goalies who we'll talk about more in a bit. They're trying to find their way in the NHL. Make it as difficult as possible on them and their team. Make Buffalo uncomfortable. All right, up next, we'll give you a scouting report on the Kings opening night opponent, the Buffalo Sabres. We'll do that next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Those of us that live in LA are so lucky. We have so many opportunities to see live events, sports for sure, but it's not all just about sports. We've got theater events, comedies, shows, concerts, but no matter what you're into, you need to do what I do, and that's use Gametime for all your ticket needs. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks. It makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff, so you only get incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You can get USC and UCLA football tickets for almost free when you use the Gametime discount. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. All right, we are going to get now into the LA Kings opponent for their season opener, and that would be the Buffalo Sabres. And the Buffalo Sabres as an opponent, I think for the LA Kings is both good news and bad news. We'll start with the bad news. The LA Kings have not had much success in Buffalo over the years. Last time the Kings faced the Sabres in Buffalo last season, I believe it was the second game for new head coach Jim Hiller taking over for Tom McClellan. And the Kings got absolutely crushed. They lost 7-0, the most embarrassing loss of the season. The time before that, when the Kings played in Buffalo, they only lost 6-0 in that one. Since October 7th of 2000, the LA Kings have a record of 3-13 in Buffalo. And frankly, they were playing some Sabres teams that weren't all that great. Now, I will say, if memory serves me correctly, a lot of those games were usually early morning weekend games. And maybe I'm looking for an excuse or an explanation, but I'm sure it's not easy for a West Coast team to play those early morning East Coast games. That said, over the years, again, it wasn't like the Kings were facing a really, really quality opponent. It's not something that's easily explained, but it seems to be a real thing. The Kings do not fare well typically in Buffalo. I guess that leads us to the possible good news. Again, the Buffalo Sabres are not that good, not expected to be that good again this season. Last season, they had a record of 39, 37, and 6. They had 84 points. They were 7 points out of a playoff spot. Only 4 other teams in the Eastern Conference had a worse record than the Buffalo Sabres. Now, they might be better this year, but not expected to be a lot better, and not many people are predicting the Buffalo Sabres to be a playoff team. Matter of fact, Buffalo has the second longest current playoff drought of any pro North American sports team, at least as far as the 4 major sports: NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, and the NHL. The Buffalo Sabres have missed the playoffs 13 years in a row. That is an NHL record. The New York Jets of the NFL hold the current longest playoff drought with 14 years in a row that they have missed the postseason. So the Sabres are 0-2 this season. They have played 2 games last week over in Prague in the Czech Republic in the NHL Global Series. Buffalo lost 3-1 and 4-1 to the New Jersey Devils, and obviously not the start they were looking for, and didn't play great in either game as well. And they've already looking a little bit like they're, I don't want to say they're desperate, but they know things need to change in a hurry. One of their top forwards, Alex Tuck, had this to say on the Sabres start to the season, quote, "You have to move on. If you dwell on it too much and look too far ahead, that's when things spiral out of control. We're 0-2 to start the year. It's not the end of the world, but we know we have to be better. Each and every one of us in this locker room needs to elevate and be better. That's what we're going to do." End quote. That was Buffalo Sabres forward Alex Tuck. So we'll see. The Sabres not only not off to a great start, but they're also learning under a new old coach in Lindy Ruff. He is back behind the bench for Buffalo this season after several years away. He had been the head coach of the Dallas Stars. He had been the head coach most recently of the New Jersey Devils. He previously coached the Sabres from the 1997-98 season through the 2012-2013 season. He is the all-time winningest coach in Sabres franchise history. He led the Sabres to their only Stanley Cup Finals appearance in their franchise history. That was back in 1989 when they lost to the Dallas Stars. So while Buffalo, as a fan base and as a city, is very familiar with Lindy Ruff, these players he's coaching now don't know him at all. He's a totally new coach to them. And like the LA Kings, he's implementing new systems and new styles. And there's still an adjustment phase going on for the Buffalo Sabres. Obviously, they've had their issues in their first two games so far. We'll see if those issues continue in their season opener against the Kings. As for Buffalo, if you're watching the game, who do you want to look out for? Well, pretty easy to spot 6'6" forward Tage Thompson, the son of former LA King Brent Thompson. Tage Thompson led the team with 29 goals last season, which was 18 less than his career high that he had the season before when he had 47. He is still, though, the Sabres' top threat and a handful to try and defend with that size and that wingspan. He is a guy the Kings do not want to see getting going in this one. A couple other Sabres to look out for, the aforementioned Alex Tuch, as well as defenseman Rasmus Dahlin. Both Tuch and Dahlin were tied for the team lead in points a year ago with 59 apiece. Now, we know the Kings have a few injury issues, most notably Drew Doughty, Arthur Kaliyev as well. The Sabres are already having some injury issues as well. Winger Nicholas Aube-Kubel is going to miss 3 to 6 weeks. He is out with a lower body injury. He suffered that injury in the season opener over in the Czech Republic. And he's a bottom six forward, so not the most important guy in the world, but still a player that was in their starting lineup that's going to be out. However, top line forward JJ Peterka, who was the second leading goal scorer on this team a year ago, suffered a concussion over in Europe. Now, it sounds serious, and certainly there are different degrees of concussions, so you would think he wouldn't play against the Kings. However, word out of Buffalo earlier on Wednesday was that he did practice, and he's officially listed as day-to-day. Now, if he can't go, then that would obviously mean the Sabres would need to make some adjustments to their top six forwards, but we'll have to see if he's in the lineup or not. Now, Buffalo used two different goalies in their two opening games over in Prague. The first goalie is one of my favorite names in the NHL, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. He allowed 3 goals on 22 shots in the opening night loss. And then Devin Levi got the start in the second game. He allowed 3 goals on 37 shots in the second loss. Now, both these guys are very young. They are still trying to establish themselves as NHL goalies. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is 25 years old. Devin Levi is 22. Combined, they've played a total of 132 career NHL games. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen expected to get the start against the LA Kings. So, as I mentioned earlier, young goalies, make it uncomfortable for them. Have them, if you can get them to give up a goal early, maybe the confidence is not quite there, and we'll see how that goes. But a couple of young goalies in net for the Sabres, and again, we're expecting Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen to get the start. So, on paper, seems like a less than powerful opponent for the Kings to open up the season against. But as we mentioned, the Kings have not, for whatever reason, played very well in Buffalo. We will see how things go this time around. Up next, the Kings face a tough challenge to start the season. We'll get into that more next on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you would place your bets. And of course, FanDuel is there for you to bet on Major League Baseball's postseason. The Dodgers up against the San Diego Padres. Can the Dodgers stay alive with a victory in game number 4? You can certainly bet on that and see if the Dodgers can come back and win it all. And by the way, if you're wondering about betting on the LA Kings to win it all, the Kings are a plus 2,300 to win the Stanley Cup this year. Join FanDuel, browse the latest betting odds on your favorite sports and teams on the Sportsbook app, and get in on the action. You get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Well, the LA Kings are going to start the 2024-25 season on a 7-game, 14-day road trip. That is not even taking into account the 2 preseason games they played in Quebec before the start of the season. So the Kings have packed up their bags, and they are away from home for quite a while. Now, after facing Buffalo on Thursday in the season opener, it's off to Boston for a game on Saturday, October 12th to take on the always tough Bruins. 2 days later, the Kings will be in Ottawa to face the Senators. That's October 14th. 2 days after that, the Kings are going to play back-to-back games in Toronto on Wednesday the 16th and Montreal Thursday the 17th. Now, the Kings do get a little bit of a break. They're going to fly back home. They'll take on the Ducks in Anaheim on Sunday, October 20th, and then wrap up the trip with a game in Las Vegas against the Golden Knights. That's on Tuesday, October the 22nd. So certainly a challenge for the Kings to be so far away from home and playing on the road to start the season. Again, do get a little bit of a break with those final 2 road games because they will get to come home and take quick trips to Anaheim on a bus and a quick flight to Las Vegas. But should be a pretty good test for the Kings, starting on the East Coast, going up through Canada, and then coming back to Los Angeles. Now, of the 7 teams the Kings are facing, 4 of those teams did not make the playoffs a year ago. That was the Sabres, Senators, Canadiens, and Ducks, the 3 teams that did make the playoffs, the Bruins, Maple Leafs, and Golden Knights. If the Kings could come back with, say, 8 out of a possible 14 points, I think we would consider that a fairly successful trip. Hopefully that will be the case. There was one bit of news involving the Ontario Reign I wanted to pass along. The Reign have named defenseman Joe Hicketts as their new captain. He takes over for the departed TJ Tynan. Hicketts joined the Reign last season. He played 30 games in Ontario. Now he has been a veteran of 8 seasons in the AHL, 28 years old from Kamloops, British Columbia. He has played 22 career NHL games when he was formerly with the Detroit Red Wings in their organization. So congrats to Joe Hicketts, your new captain of the Ontario Reign. Before we wrap up today's show, I wanted to share with you some sad news. A big Kings fan and supporter of this show has passed away. I got an email last night from Tony Ariano. He's the father of Tim Ariano, and he wanted to let me know that his son had passed away after a long and courageous battle against cancer. Tim was just 44. Tony shared his love of the Kings with his son, Tim, who I was fortunate enough to meet last season at a Kings game. For those of you that are watching on YouTube, I'm going to share a picture of me and Tim at that Kings game last season. Now, Tim was a SoCal native, but he had moved to Michigan, but came back last season to see the Kings and was pretty aware of his situation and his prognosis. Told me that he was pretty sure that this was going to be the final time that he'd ever get to see the LA Kings in person. So I was really glad that Tim was able to make that trip and able to see the Kings. And you know, he was a true Kings fan to the end. It was great to get to meet him and interact with him a lot. That was the only time that I met him in person. But we did exchange phone numbers, and I got to text with him throughout about the Kings and some other things as well. You know, it is a reminder that we should definitely celebrate cancer survivors, but you know, I'm lucky enough to have some cancer survivors in my family as well. But, you know, the ones that ultimately don't end up winning the battle, they are just as courageous and deserving of our respect and admiration. Tim's not with us anymore, not because he didn't fight and battle, and he did so for many years. But unfortunately, sometimes that horrible disease wins, if you want to call it that. But Tim was quite a battler while he was here. Great Kings fan, and we're obviously very sad for him and his family. He leaves behind a wife and 2 young daughters. I shared on our social media account at Locked On LA Kings a link to a GoFundMe for his family. If you feel like maybe giving, you can also go to GoFundMe.com, search the Ariano family, Arellano. Now, there are several Ariano family pages there. If you go there, you'd want to donate to the one created by Melissa King, appropriate, a king. There is a picture of Tim and his wife and his daughter at the beach on the page for that. And if you want me to send you the link to it, I would be more than happy to do that. You can email the show, and I will pass along that link. The email I got from Tim's dad, Tony, also said that he watches the show and enjoys it. And if you are watching this, Tony, obviously we all send our condolences to you on your loss. and we will definitely keep Tim and your family in our thoughts and prayers. All right, for you everydayers, those of you that listen and watch Locked On LA Kings every day, coming up on Thursday, because it is an early game locally, 4 p.m. Pacific time, Kings Sabres in the season opener. We will have a post-game recap show after that game on Thursday night. So hopefully you will have that to enjoy either Thursday late night or possibly Friday morning. So keep an eye out for that. Again, post-game show after the Kings Sabres season opener Thursday night. And of course, on Friday, our typical fan feedback show. If you want to send an email for the fan feedback show or anything else, the email address is lockedoneddie@gmail.com. If you're watching on YouTube, we'd love for you to leave your comments in the comment section as always. Love for you to stay connected with the show on social media. Follow us on X, Twitter, and Instagram. We are at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you for listening and watching Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Excited about the season opener for the LA Kings and to see what this team has to offer. We'll be talking about that on Thursday's show. Until then, have a great day. And as always, go Kings go.